Information on a story we've been following since March. New audio and police body cam video released from the day 8-year-old Navin Jones died at his Peoria home. His parents arrested and charged with Navin's murder just hours later.
And now WMBD has obtained the arrest video and the 911 phone call that Navin's mother, Stephanie Jones, made to police. The original call came 10 minutes after she says she found her son unresponsive. And our Durante Matthews obtained that footage. He joins us live with the video and the audio, never before released on TV. Durante.
And Shelby, Mark, the audio is very hard to listen to, but one thing does jump out, something that even the state's attorney brought up. It's nearly a minute that passes between the start of the phone call and Mother Stephanie Jones telling the 911 dispatcher that her son is unconscious.
How long ago did you find him? Maybe 10 minutes ago.
A distressed call on Tuesday, March 29th, coming from this house on 1717 North Gale Street in Peoria.
How old is your son? 8. He's 8? Yes.
Details the final day of 8-year-old Navin Jones.
Ma'am, what's your name? Stephanie Jones.
For the first time, you're listening to this newly released 911 audio WMBD obtained. You can hear the voice of 35-year-old Stephanie Jones calling police to report her son is unconscious and not breathing. Only she doesn't start with that crucial information.
Tell me exactly what happened. My son, since I got him from his grandmother after she threw him out, he's been doing a lot of really weird things, like drinking his own urine. He's pooped all over the house, smearing it everywhere.
Almost 1 minute into the call, Jones is asked why she's calling for help before she finally reveals what's wrong.
What happened today? I went upstairs because I hadn't heard from him and found him unresponsive on the floor. Is he breathing? No.
On the call, you can hear Jones being instructed how to perform CPR before help arrives. But ultimately, Navin was pronounced dead that day just before 8 p.m., weighing 30 pounds, thin, with sunken eyes, sores on his back, and ligature marks. His parents, Jones, and 40-year-old Brandon Walker, both in handcuffs before the night was over.
You don't have anything on you at this time.
Both parents accused of abuse and neglect are now charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder and have a $5 million bond. Both have pled not guilty. And another interesting note from the audio, Jones says twice that Navin's grandmother, quote, threw him out, end quote. But DCFS records report the grandmother gave both Navin and his older brother to Navin's parents while she went away for a family emergency, and both parents refused to return both boys to their grandmother when she came back. And you can find that entire DCFS report along with more coverage over on our website, CI Press.
The parents of Navin Jones face life in prison following the death of their 8-year-old son last week. According to a police report, Navin weighed just 32 pounds when he arrived at the hospital and appeared to be extremely emaciated, with sunken eyes and a skeletal frame. Peoria County Coroner Jamie Harwood called it the worst case of child abuse he's ever seen. The boy's parents, Brandon Walker and Stephanie Jones, were arrested on charges of first-degree murder. On Friday, the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services released a 9-page report detailing the agency's extensive history with Navin's family. I'm here with WCBU's Hannah Alani, who's been covering the story. Hannah, what's the latest information you can share with us right now?
Well, like you said, on Friday, DCFS did release a report. It was 9 pages long. It kind of got blasted out to all media outlets at once. And it was kind of a combination of things. It included a timeline of DCFS involvement with the family of Navin Jones. DCFS actually became aware of Navin at his birth. He was born with narcotics in his system. And what happens in that case, it triggers DCFS involvement right away. And at that point, both Navin and an older sibling, who right now we know is 12 years old, were placed into foster care. And they were living in foster care from 2013 to 2017. In April of 2017, the children, they both share parents, Stephanie Jones, their mother, and Brandon Walker, their father. They were placed into custody with Brandon's mother, their paternal grandmother, Laura Walker, who lives in Washington. So that happens in April of 2017. And to this day, Laura Walker is their legal guardian. We also learned through these DCFS files that Stephanie Jones had another baby in 2007 before Navin and his older sibling were born. This baby died at 3 months old. The cause of death was ruled SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. However, following all of this that's happened in the last couple of weeks, Peoria County Coroner Jamie Harwood has opened an investigation into that child's death.
So if the grandma was legal guardian, how did Navin end up at the parents' home?
Yeah, so this is something that I think is a pretty critical piece of information, and the DCFS files did provide some context and some answers here. Well, what happened was, and this is according to DCFS case files, you're going to hear me repeat that a lot during this debrief.
Right.
In the summer of 2021, their grandmother, Laura Walker, says that she needs to go to Florida for a family emergency. And that family emergency took her out of the state for about 6 weeks. It was to take care of her ailing father. At this point, it's the summer before the fall 2021 school semester, and both children, Navin and his older sibling, were enrolled in Washington public schools. That's where Laura Walker lived. That's where they should have been going to school last August. That summer, Laura takes the kids to her son, Brandon Walker, and Brandon Walker's partner, Stephanie, to their home, and they are going to live there for the summer. When Laura returns from Florida in August, basically Brandon and Stephanie refuse to give the kids back.
Wow. So what do we know about police involvement?
Yeah, so when Laura got back from Florida, she filed police reports with both the Peoria Police Department and the Washington Police Department, her home jurisdiction, in which she basically requested help getting the kids back. And in August, a Peoria police officer did stop by the family's home. At this point, they were living at 2050 North Gale Avenue. And according to that August police report, the officer saw the kids and deemed them, quote, safe in their report. DCFS did follow up with home visits. But according to case files, it seems like it became difficult to actually locate the family. And in October, authorities received information through an acquaintance of Brandon Walker that the family had moved to Florida and that they would not be returning to Illinois. So it's at this point that DCFS closes its investigation because the family is no longer in Illinois. They closed the investigation in November.
But the family did return to Illinois.
Yes, and we're not sure exactly when, but we do know that Stephanie and Brandon moved back to Peoria, moved back to Gale Avenue, this time at 1717 North Gale.
If you're just joining us, this is WCBU's All Things Peoria. I'm Daniel Musisi, and today WCBU reporter Hannah Alani is here discussing the latest in the case of Navin Jones, an 8-year-old boy whose death was ruled a homicide last week. And how and when did DCFS find out that they did return?
So someone made an anonymous tip in February to the DCFS hotline stating that Navin and his older sibling were being abused. The reporter alleged Navin was black and blue with bruises. The reporter also alleged that Brandon Walker, the father of the children, who appears to own a towing company and a storage company based in Peoria Heights, had been taking the older sibling with him to work. And while at work, the 12-year-old suffered an injury, like a work-related injury. So DCFS follows up on these tips. In addition to investigating general neglect and abuse, they also opened an investigation into human trafficking because of the allegation regarding Brandon taking his child to work and obviously being injured at work. According to DCFS files, an investigator spoke with Brandon at the 1717 North Gale house, and Brandon admitted that neither child was enrolled in school nor seeing a doctor for medical care. And the reason for this was because they weren't legal guardians. The fact that they weren't the children's legal guardians essentially presented a barrier to them being able to access any kind of services for their kids. And according to DCFS records at this point, I think this is an important point to make, the children's legal guardian, who has been legal guardian since 2017, grandmother Laura Walker, says that she no longer wants custody of the kids. She expresses frustration that both police departments did not do enough to help her get the kids back last fall. And she says, you know what, I'll sign whatever I need to sign, put them into foster care.
So then what happens? What does DCFS do in this kind of a situation?
Well, that's an interesting question, and it's one that's really been top of mind here in the newsroom. It's something that we've been talking about. what is the protocol? This is a very critical piece of follow-up reporting that we're pursuing. What does DCFS do in this situation? According to case reports, DCFS investigators visibly witnessed Navin Jones in February, just shy of a month of his death, last Tuesday, March 29th, as appearing sickly and malnourished. But during a scheduled home visit in the presence of his parents, I should point out, Navin eats popcorn, and he tells investigators, yes, he does eat, but he doesn't gain weight. And then his mother, Stephanie, steps in and tells the investigator, yeah, my son eats, but doesn't gain weight. Knowing the children aren't in school and aren't receiving medical care, and I have to assume also knowing that there's some resistance on the legal guardian's end about, even maybe wanting to take the children back, and I would never want to put words into the mouth of the grandmother, and again, I have to say this is all attributed to DCFS case reports. We were not there, we didn't hear or see any of this. But the investigator at this point suggests, okay, maybe there's a medical issue here with Navin. He eats, he doesn't gain weight. Let's try to get him into medical care. How can we help the family do this? And at this point, it's at this juncture that DCFS describes a process called Intact Families. And basically what that is, they ask Laura Walker, would you be willing to sign over short-term guardianship to the parents, to the biological parents, Brandon and Stephanie, so that they can start, on behalf of their own children, seeking these services, enrolling their kids in Peoria Public Schools, getting them medical care. And Laura does sign the paperwork. In fact, she signs the paperwork, and according to DCFS case files, it lands at DCFS on March 29th, just awaiting signatures from Brandon and Stephanie the day Navin dies. And, moving forward, WCBU, we're here to ask these questions. We're here to better understand the role of DCFS in this case and others. And I think it would be really helpful for us if anyone listening to this has a DCFS experience that you'd be willing to share with us, whether you're a parent, a child who's aged out of the system, a former employee, a current employee of DCFS, anyone who works in this world of child welfare. We would love to hear from you.
Well, thanks so much, Hannah. That was WCBU reporter Hannah Alani discussing the latest in the case of Navin Jones, an 8-year-old boy whose death was ruled a homicide last week. Jones' parents, Stephanie Jones and Brandon Walker, were arrested last week on charges of first-degree murder and face life in prison. For more information, you can find Hannah's story at WCBU.org.